Hey, MMT followers, Christina Fuges with MoldMaking Technology for another quick MMT chat. My guests today are three gentlemen from Omega Tool out in Menomonee Falls, Wisconsin. Jed Weber, President, Randy Meissner, Vice President of Operations, and Wes Stevens, Sales and Project Manager. They're here to talk about enterprise resource planning, ERP software, and more specifically, their challenge of schedule and capacity load monitoring. Hello, Jed, Randy, and Wes.
Oh, hello.
All right, so to get started, Wes, why don't you give us a snapshot of who Omega Tool is? You know, its size, its specialty, how you differentiate yourself from the competition. Give us a snapshot.
Okay. Well, as you said, we're in Menomonee Falls, Wisconsin, which is just north of Milwaukee. We have 42 employees. We're 35,000 square feet, and we're a family-owned business, third generation. We're known for ultra-high precision, high cavitation tooling for medical, packaging, and light industrial. I would say our differentiators are we build very precise molds. There aren't a lot of shops in this category. And with being family owned, we have less bureaucracy and red tape than some of the larger conglomerates. So that makes us easy to work with.
That's nice. You got to like that feeling. That's a whole culture thing. So I think customers would appreciate that. Okay. So
Yes.
We're going to take a problem, solution, results approach to this conversation. So, Jed, let's start with the problem. What was the problem? Because I know that there's a lot of secrets to success of designing, manufacturing, maintaining a mold. And one of the things that Wes brought to my attention was enterprise resource planning and that solution. So what was the problem, and when and how did you identify it, and who identified it?
Well, it all started back around 2013. 2014, and what the issue was originally was just basically we were just replacing our ERP software with an old outdated version, and we started looking at different options. And what's interesting about the whole scenario is, like I said, we were just looking for something to handle time, like the clocking in, clocking out, things like that, as well as obviously the financial end of it. And we ended up stumbling upon all these other resources that were built into this particular software that we ended up going with, which was E2, to do pretty much every aspect of the company, from the financial part of it to routing and planning the jobs to go through the shop. So it's not only us using it up in the front office, but it's everybody in the whole building, basically. So all the guys in the shop, they're tracking their time. That was basically how it happened. So we kind of stumbled.
Okay, so it's pretty much a typical upgrade, right, of a product, and now you're discovering there's other bells and whistles that you could be taking advantage of basically throughout the whole shop, not just one area. Is that kind of what was happening there in a nutshell?
Absolutely.
So what's
like I said, we started it back, like I said, it was around 2013 when we started looking. I want to say we implemented it around 2014, correct, Randy?
That's correct.
I think it was around that time. And it took us a good 4 or 5 years to really dial everything in, our reports that we wanted, our custom reports, and just to be able to basically get everybody on board. It took probably a good 4 or 5 years until we really got honed in, where it was really working smooth for us.
So can you take me through that a little bit? Because what is involved in figuring that out? Like if it's taking that long, who is it? Was there a certain team? Was it department heads? How do you sit down and figure out who's going to benefit from this, or what do they need to make sure that this was the right software solution?
Well, picking the software, like I said, was basically up front, it came down to the basics of what we always knew. So like the financial end of it, things like that. And this E2 software seemed like that was going to work the best for us. And then that's when we started realizing all these other advantages to the software that we could potentially be using. But it took a lot of resources because you got to get everybody in the whole building on board with it. Yeah. Explain why we're changing things and why we should be doing it this way. you know, because they all had to change the way they track their time, enter their time. You know, now everything now is tracked to the minute compared to
Wow.
before it was hours at best, you know. So it just took a lot to get everybody basically on board with that. And then on the other side of it, for most of us up here, it was using the reports and the software in a stock format basically, and just kind of tuning it from there to how we want to use it. Because ultimately, most of these softwares are all built for or designed for production environments, and you know, everything we do is custom one-off stuff. So we kind of had to tune it a little bit to get it to work the best for us.
Yeah, therein lies that challenge consistently, right? Everybody buys these things off the shelf, and you are constantly customizing them to what you do, customizing, because that's it. Like, what you do is different. Every job is different. And I don't think any software company out there has really figured out how to manage that within a mold making environment. But it sounds like E2 is pretty close. So Randy, can you explain a little bit, how does E2 work, and what are some of the specific features or functions that really made the difference to Omega?
Well, it's, as you said, it's an ERP system, and it covers all aspects of the shop, from POs, purchasing, manufacturing management. I have all those tools at my resources, time tickets, adjusting time, routing jobs. It's so powerful. A mold comes in, and I take each component of the mold, and then I break down every single step of each component, including heat treat, steel purchasing. And it's made my job so easy, because we're actually tracking true manufacturing costs. It's not a gut feel or, well, the account's going up, so we must be doing good. We can reorder a part. I can look at the original routing steps, my quote on it, my estimate in actual hours that were taken on the floor, and I can make that component again and know if I'm profitable just selling that one gear or that one core cavity block. Just the history that we're building with it is so powerful.
Because all that just builds upon the next project, right? Everything that you're learning, this history helps educate you basically on what you can do for the next project.
Yes, and all the programmer operators, they don't see every function of E2 like I do, but it's catered for them on the shop floor. They see a certain screen, and it's streamlined down. It's not like they're stumbling through, you know, well, how do I get through POs, or, oh, I went into shipping, or I went into routing.
Right.
We each have keys that are activated for our own use.
Okay. So there's basically passwords. So everybody has a different level of access to the software. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. So Jed, was there anything so you've had E2 before. Was there anything that a shop needs to have implemented? Was there a change, or is there a change to the company or the way you do things that has to happen before you implement, maybe not specifically E2, but an ERP?
Physically, hardware-wise, there wasn't much of anything. It's just getting, like I said, the biggest thing is getting everybody on board and learning the software, because it's a much more powerful software than what we were using. There's a lot more options. You know, like Randy was talking before about what he uses. I mean, what he uses is completely different than what I may use in the software, you know, for whatever we're doing. I would say the biggest thing that we gained from it, though, like Randy said, is tracking our true cost. That was one of the things I set out to do a couple years ago. You know, everything years ago, it was like you said, if the bank account's going up, we must be doing good, right? But I really wanted to find out our true costs of what everything costs, and in doing that, it just made us more efficient in numerous aspects of the company and the software.
It's interesting, even in this time when you hear about reshoring a lot, right? And everything's about the true cost. So have you had a customer, like, now that you understand your costs better, there could even be customers out there that think you're more expensive because you thought you were, but you actually are not? Has that actually happened with customers by learning what your true costs are?
Yes. I mean, it's ultimately, you figure out your true cost, but then it's also how you're building a mold or designing a tool and building it, there's a couple different sides of that, I guess, but it makes us all a lot more comfortable with what we're doing, as far as knowing exactly what it takes. Makes us more confident in our quoting and everything,
Is there a specific area in your whole process of designing and building a mold that changed the most when you figured out, your true cost? Did something change? Well, we can't do it that way anymore, or we can't buy that tooling anymore. Like, talk about that a little bit.
I don't know, Randy, what do you think about that? I mean, the manufacturing part of it probably didn't change too much. I would say a big aspect, a big thing for us is hard cutting. We hard cut. We find that there's a massive advantage of hard cutting as much as possible, obviously over EDM,
right,
and burning. So we found significant advantages there. As far as actually changing the way we do things, I don't know. I don't know how much change there was there.
Not even. Go ahead, Randy.
Jed and I talk a lot. I mean, the day could be running smooth, and in communication is as crucial as the software we're talking about. We'll look at a job and it went good the last time, and we'll just get together and say, what can we do different? Not for difference sake. How can we streamline? How can we, if we just took that component out, we made that component for a living, how can we do that faster? So E2 helps me look at, what does it actually cost us to make a rotating core? We'll look at that, and we send it out for hobbing. That's one of the things we do send out. We can get a $10,000 hobbing attachment for our live tooling lathe. Should we do that? We're breaking things down to such a minute degree where we can be more efficient.
Wow.
E2 helps me see that because I know what a gib cost me to make.
Yeah, exactly. So is that all, it's specific, Jed, you had said that you had to kind of make it your own. So, and it took, what did you say, 4 to 5 years to get it to where it is today, to really kind of, it's an accurate picture of who Omega is and how you do things, right? So you're actually putting in what you just said there, Randy, as an example. This is all stuff that you were entering into this software because it's specific to Omega, and it will be there forever. That's why you can always look back and know how you did it before. As you're moving forward, everybody in that shop knows how it was done. It's all saved.
Yeah, it's much more data entry than what it was before, but it's almost like any tool. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
Like I was mentioning before, Randy is the one that routes all of the jobs. We call it routing. So we route every component for everything we make through E2 down to the minute from every operation for every component. So
time is
once
money.
That's all put in. Yeah, and it's amazing. You can have a 2,000-hour job, and the estimations of where we were at, when we were routing the job might be within 50 hours, which for us, that's really, really good, So, just learning the system, changing the reports to exactly how we wanted them. I think we have 7 or 8 custom reports that we use on a weekly basis.
Okay.
Is there, and like I said, just getting better at the routing part of it.
Is there a particular job where like the light bulb went off, or you guys were like, oh my gosh, like you can't believe the difference in terms of that project, the difference just tracking all that data made for the job? Like a really good example of the effectiveness.
I think all of them, since we started using it, all of them have been effective, but the ones, if we're doing a very similar job or a repeat job, those are the ones that are the most benefited from, because we can look back and see exactly what it took us to do it the first time.
Yeah. We have to talk about the people, because I know you guys keep bringing that up, and people are always critical to the success of any technology or like process change, right? Getting the buy-in, training, a new way of thinking. So Randy, talk about, or any of you, but Randy in particular, talk about how the Omega team influence like the results of using an E2. Like how do they play into all this, and what was the journey of getting them on board?
Well, you had a wooden box, and you used to have the Flintstone whistle blow and punching the time clock. And there were guys that was, pre-wash, everybody lined up, and that now, the environment's live every 10 seconds. So it doesn't make a difference if it's 7:12 when you come in and you're not docked for 7 minutes to the nearest quarter hour, and all those little micromanaging rules, they come in and you got a coffee, you're running late. There's no real late. It's just you're paid right to the minute. But the changing the paper time slips, you had guys that would carry those around, and some would fill them out as they would go. Some would try to do that at the end of the day and try to recall what they did and round up and round down. Well, eventually, in the first year or so, they would use E2 and use the paper and just kind of like try to do it at the end of the day. So they're doing both. And then we just decided, and there's a few of you that still want those pads out. Once they run out, we're done. And
that's hilarious.
Everybody has fully embraced it. It was no different than we went completely paperless. Or how are we going to build a mold without a detailed blueprint hanging? So we took down all the print racks, and now it's so commonplace for them. I don't know if they would even want to go back, if they even could.
Wow.
We got a real sharp crew who's real tech savvy, so everybody has jumped on board. We don't have anybody fighting the system, not one bit.
So there was no resistance at all, not even out of a fear of just change, because I can totally relate to the keeping the pad and going. Like you almost want the backup because you're not truly trusting the new system, right? So you're actually productivity for a little bit can be not good because you have to trust the system. So what was the learning curve? Even if they weren't resistant, what was the learning curve?
2 years.
They were resistant.
Yeah.
I'd say
they were resistant. It took, that's why I'm saying it took probably 4 or 5 years before we got everything tuned in. But it, like Randy was mentioning, I mean, it took a couple of years to get everybody on board and
comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, there was there. Yeah.
How much training is involved with this? Like there's getting buy-in and making people comfortable. What's the training with E2? Is it just using it? Or how was ShopTech, as in the supplier, with providing support for that?
I think using it is the best way to learn it. But I would say there's a few sharp guys that really learned it quick, and we kind of utilize them for resources. If there's things that we couldn't figure out, we have full maintenance and support on the software, so we can call them as well if need be. But I think just using the software was the best way that everybody learned how to use it.
Did anybody think it felt kind of, when you're measuring or tracking to that degree, was there any sense of people feeling like it was kind of like a big brother? Like, why do we have to know this nitty gritty? Did anybody feel like they were going to be exposed because all this tracking is going on?
I'll answer that one. You print out some paper and it's highlighted. I'm like, really? Like 27 hours for that? And in the beginning, it was I must have logged it into the wrong. So we track the errors too.
Okay.
Now, since we so openly want them to see the estimated time, I tell them, okay, you're starting the job, look at what I estimated. If you see something different, if I miss something, let's talk about it. So it hasn't been a scary threat, but it's a marker that they want to meet. So it's, they rose to the occasion to, you can't just say, well, I'll do my best, and what it is what it is.
Right.
We don't have that attitude here. They really try to hit the marker.
Prior to E2. So can any of you talk about, was there a difference between generations? Like, what's the average age at Omega first?
I know.
What is it?
It's 32.
Okay, so that's pretty good. So have you noticed a difference in what I call the more seasoned guys and gals versus the next generation in terms of technology this way and accepting it and using it, embracing it? Or is this reflective of Omega's culture, which we could talk about, that you've built this up where it doesn't matter where they come from or how tech savvy they are or how young or old they are? Talk about your culture a little bit.
I think they see that in the interview right up front. Most people are kind of blown away, a little intimidated, but we explain whether it's a brand new hire or a gentleman right out of tech school or a seasoned veteran that, yeah, stretching is uncomfortable, but with that stretching you will grow, and they view it as a benefit.
Yeah, getting out of your comfort zone, right? Thinking outside the box. All right. So I think, Wes, I want to kind of wrap this up. Like, the main point is what I'm hearing is people are critical to any kind of, so especially any kind of software solution you're implementing, especially when it comes to ERP, which is, like I said earlier, is like one of the top pain points. When it comes to workforce is number one, and then it comes to this quoting and scheduling, all this kind of stuff with their enterprise is the next common challenge. But it's not just about purchasing a software product. So it's not so much about ShopTech or E2 as it is about how your shop and how your people are using it. So Wes, do you want to talk about that? Can you elaborate on why that is so critical when you go down this road?
Sure. We've done a lot of talking today about the cost of a job. I'm in sales. One of the things that I appreciate is I can have an opportunity. We can discuss with Randy and Jed, and with a high level of accuracy, we can tell how long it will take to complete that job. So that's good at the beginning of a job. Then once a job is in process, we have a very accurate snapshot of where that job, how it's tracking. Are we progressing the way we think we are? So that therefore allows us to put out accurate progress reports to the customer. So it makes my job in sales a heck of a lot easier.
Transparency, right?
Yes. And I mean, in my past, scheduling was always, you scheduled 75%. If you brought in a job, you didn't know which department it was necessarily going to land in. When you encountered a problem, you dealt with it, unfortunately, when you were in the midst of the problem rather than able to forecast. So this is any ERP system. It's not so much the type of the system, but it's what you do with the information and how you choose to make it work for your business. So I guess in a nutshell, I'll say it's allowed us to be proactive rather than reactive.
Oh, I love that.
And that's from my view. So, yeah, it's helped us in many aspects of our business.
That's great. Is there? Yeah, well, sounds like from the front, right, from design to first shot, or from the front office to the shop floor. It sounds like the whole process has to embrace this, or you can see benefits from the whole process. Correct?
That is exactly correct.
Can you? And I don't know who's the closest to the software. What is the one thing, though? Not that I want this to be a commercial for E2, but you chose E2. What is it about this type of RP solution that stands out to you that maybe the other ones don't have? That we'll kind of look at, well, how would you advise another shop? What should they be looking for in an ERP solution?
I think that's a challenging question just because I don't know enough of the other ERP softwares, I guess, as well as I know E2 to really say. But like I was saying before, I think it's almost like any other tool. The more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. So if you're not going to commit to going with it and putting all the time into it, it's probably not going to work out as well as you're hoping. But I can't really say much about the other software because I don't know enough about them.
Okay. Anybody else have any input on that from your experience or from when you've heard other shops talk about?
I have a friend Go ahead, Wes.
I was just going to say, be very clear in the goals for the software, what you want it to be able to do. In our case, it was to be able to track costs, and I'll say, backed into the advantages of helping us with scheduling and the accurate tracking of jobs. That was like a side benefit that we found out, a pleasant accidental surprise. So, but I would say if someone were searching for a new type of software, be clear of the goals that you're trying to achieve and then search that way.
Got it. And Randy, last but not least?
I have a gentleman, a friend of mine who is an owner at a shop. We're not a direct competitor, but they have E2 as well, but they haven't embraced it completely from front to back. They still use a system for payroll, and their purchase orders are, hand shippers. You need to take it on as a whole and develop it as a complete process, not segment it. Once you embrace the whole thing, it all makes sense. It really does.
So is it pretty much all or nothing?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. All right. Well, on that note, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you for the insight on this challenge and solution. And stay tuned for everything MoldMaking. Everybody listening, tune in to MoldMakingTechnology.com. And everybody out there, stay safe and healthy, stay informed, and stay inspired.